Risk assets were also underpinned by signs of easing tensions in Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin called on pro-Moscow separatists to postpone a secession vote. And Tokyo's Nikkei share average N225 rose 1.1%, while MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan MIAPJ0000PUS rose 0.5%. Inching away from 5-week lows hit on Wednesday. And Chinese exports rose 0.9% in April from a year earlier, beating expectations of a 1.7% decline, while imports also overshot economists' estimates. And the data supported the case that Beijing's use of targeted policy measures to underpin growth may be starting to stabilize the economy. And the early impetus for markets also came from Fed Chair Janet Yellen's testimony to Congress, which helped U.S. shares reverse earlier losses to end in positive territory. And Yellen repeated her stance that the economy was still in need of lots of support given the considerable slack in the labor market. And Yellen put her emphasis on the ways in which the economy and labor market were still falling short of the Fed's goals. She also emphasized risks to the economy from a potential continuation of the recent flattening out of housing activity, said Barclays analysts in notes to clients. And the clear implication is that accommodative policy will be needed for a long time. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.7% and the S&P 500. SPX gained 0.6%. And emerging market shares MSCI also held firm, with Brazilian shares hitting 6-month highs. BBSP and Mexican stocks at their highest in more than 3 months. And Yellen's remarks also kept the 10-year U.S. Treasuries yield at 2.590%, near Monday's 3-month low of 2.572%. And adding to the improved mood, Putin called on pro-Moscow separatists in Ukraine to postpone a vote on secession just 5 days before it was to be held. And in what could be a breakthrough in the worst crisis between East and West since the Cold War, Putin also announced he was pulling Russian troops back from the Ukrainian border. And dollar-denominated Russian shares hit a 5-week high. And the euro traded flat at $1.3913. Not far from Tuesday's 2-month high of $1.3952, ahead of the European Central Bank's policy meeting later in the day. A majority of investors are expecting no policy change. And a Reuters poll of more than 60 foreign exchange strategists showed on Wednesday that they think the euro needs to reach $1.42 before the ECB takes any action to weaken the currency. Still, the vast majority believe that such action is unlikely to happen. And the British pound held near a 5-year high against the dollar on rising expectations the Bank of England could tighten its policy before the Fed, probably early next year. And with risk sentiment improving slightly, the yen stepped back from the 3-week high of 101.43 yen to the dollar set on Wednesday, and traded at 101.82 yen. And gold licked its wounds at $1,290.30 per ounce after dropping 1.4% the previous day. And the Australian dollar climbed 0.3% to $0.9352 after local data showed that employment had risen more than expected in April. And editing by Srinavaratnam and Chris Gallagher, and back to top. And Thomson Reuters is the world's largest international multimedia news agency, providing investing news, world news, business news, technology news, headline news, small business news, news alerts, personal finance, stock market, and mutual funds information available on Reuters.com, video, mobile, and interactive television platforms. Thomson Reuters journalists are subject to an editorial handbook which requires fair presentation and disclosure of relevant interests. And NYSE and Amex quotes delayed by at least 20 minutes. Nasdaq delayed by at least 15 minutes. For a complete list of exchanges and delays, please click here.